Scene 3 of I'm a Lesbian Mentor takes a seemingly lighthearted premise, a specialist named Mindi helping Ember confront her fear of clowns, and unfolds it into a layered moment of vulnerability, healing, and intimacy. At first glance, the setup is almost comical. A therapist arranging a theatrical exposure exercise for a client with phobia, complete with a clown who complains about canceling a gig at Lake Hatchard. The dialogue is sprinkled with humor, references to other quirky phobias like a fear of cheese, and anecdotes about therapists having to relocate after clients developed unhealthy attachments. Yet underneath the humor, the scene carries themes that resonate powerfully within LGBTQ culture: fear, resilience, trust, and the transformative nature of human connection. For Ember, the fear of clowns has real consequences, threatening her dream of performing in the circus as a trapeze artist. For Mindi, guiding Ember through her fear requires patience, reassurance, and a willingness to hold emotional space. The turning point comes when Ember does not faint in the presence of the clown, a breakthrough that fills her with relief and gratitude, leading to a moment of tender thanks toward Mindi. In this progression from fear to relief to gratitude, we see a metaphor for queer experience, the journey from fear of rejection, fear of exposure, fear of societal ridicule, into the relief of safety, acceptance, and love. Lesbians can relate to Ember's terror, even if the fear is symbolic rather than literal. Many queer women have lived with a comparable dread, not of clowns but of being found out, of standing out in a hostile environment, of collapsing under the weight of stigma. Just as Ember dreads the clown's presence, lesbians often dread the gaze of a society that treats their love as abnormal, grotesque, or laughable. To live authentically means confronting that fear, much like Ember does in this scene. And just as Ember needed Mindi's supportive presence, her calm voice, her reassurance that you're in a safe place with me, many lesbians need community, mentors, or partners who remind them that they are not alone and that their feelings are valid. In this way, Ember's phobia mirrors the anxiety of queerness, and her success in staying upright becomes a triumph against erasure and shame. Women in general can also see themselves in this scene, because it highlights the importance of solidarity in facing fears. Female friendships and relationships often carry the weight of emotional caretaking, of one woman supporting another through a crisis. The exchange between Ember and Mindi echoes a broader cultural truth. Women are socialized to care, to comfort, and to be the anchors in moments of chaos. In the queer context, this care takes on heightened significance. For many lesbians, the first woman they fall in love with is also the first person who makes them feel safe enough to face their own truths. The therapist-client relationship here is professional, but the gratitude Ember feels spills over into something more tender, demonstrating how emotional support can kindle intimacy. This is why women watching can understand Ember's desire to show appreciation. It reflects a universal human impulse to give love back when love has been received, even if that love is expressed through something as simple as heartfelt thanks. Society's discomfort with two women in love weaves through this scene indirectly. Why does society ridicule lesbian intimacy the way Ember ridicules clowns before she sees them up close? Much of it stems from unfamiliarity and projection. The fear of clowns often arises because they mask their true identity under makeup, turning human expressions into exaggerated, unsettling caricatures. Society has treated lesbian love similarly, disguising it under stereotypes, mocking it in media, portraying it as unnatural or frightening because it does not conform to the expected face of heterosexual romance. When Ember finally realizes the clown is just a man in makeup, she learns that her fear was disproportionate, a distortion. Likewise, when society truly looks at lesbian relationships without the mask of prejudice, it sees that love between women is just love, real, human, and worthy of respect. Yet, like Ember, society often needs to be guided, reassured, and exposed to the reality gently before it can accept what it once feared. Mindi's role as a steady guide is also culturally significant. She represents the mentor figure who helps a younger or more vulnerable person navigate fear, echoing the importance of queer mentorship. Many lesbians look back on the first women who made them feel safe, whether a friend, a teacher, a counselor, or a lover, as pivotal to their ability to embrace their identity. Mindi doesn't dismiss Ember's phobia as silly. She validates her feelings and structures a safe environment to confront them. In queer culture, this validation is life-saving. It is the difference between collapsing under the weight of shame and finding the courage to stand tall. Ember's gratitude, her desire to thank Mindi beyond words, reflects the deep emotional bonds that form when someone helps you confront and overcome what once felt insurmountable. The humor in the scene, the clown asking about payment, the therapist mentioning a client terrified of cheese, might seem like comic relief, but it mirrors how queer communities often cope with hardship through humor. Lesbians especially are known for turning fear and marginalization into moments of laughter, not to trivialize the struggles, but to reclaim power from them. Jokes about phobias, quirks, and absurdities echo the ways queer people joke about stereotypes or the ridiculousness of homophobia itself. Humor becomes a survival tool, a way to take control of a situation that could otherwise feel overwhelming. In this sense, the scene captures a specifically queer mode of resilience, facing fear with both courage and wit. Another layer lies in the theme of boundaries, raised earlier in the script when Mindi's colleague warns about clients developing unhealthy attachments. This echoes the historical pathologization of queer relationships, where same-sex intimacy was once framed as predatory or inappropriate, especially in mentor-student or therapist-client dynamics. By showing Ember's gratitude as tender rather than predatory, the scene reframes intimacy as natural and healing. This challenges the stereotype that lesbian desire is always dangerous or exploitative. Instead, it suggests that intimacy, whether platonic, romantic, or somewhere in between, can grow out of shared vulnerability and mutual trust without being shameful. The metaphor of immersion therapy resonates strongly with LGBTQ culture as well. Coming out itself is a kind of exposure therapy, first confronting oneself, then trusted individuals, then broader society. Each step feels terrifying, like standing in front of a clown when your body is primed to faint. Yet, as with Ember, each successful confrontation builds resilience and self-assurance. Lesbians, in particular, know the relief of realizing they did not collapse when revealing their love. Instead, they grew stronger. The joy Ember feels in realizing "I didn't faint" is akin to the joy of coming out and discovering that the world did not end, that one's fears, while real, were not fake. The gratitude Ember expresses to Mindi also mirrors the gratitude many queer people feel toward those who made space for them. Society often erases these small but monumental acts of support. Someone who listened without judgment, someone who defended them against ridicule, someone who loved them openly despite the risks. In queer culture, these moments are remembered and cherished because they are lifelines. Ember's thankfulness is not just about surviving a clown encounter, it is about surviving herself, her own fear, her own body's urge to collapse. That depth of relief naturally translates into affection for the person who made it possible. Returning to the central question of why society resists two women in love, we can understand it as rooted in the same dynamics of fear, distortion, and control that drive phobias. Patriarchy has long painted lesbian love as threatening, mocking it, sexualizing it, or erasing it altogether. Just as Ember's mind exaggerated the clown into something monstrous, society exaggerates lesbian intimacy into something unnatural. Both fears dissolve when confronted with reality. Ember sees just a man in makeup. Society sees just two women in love. Yet acceptance requires exposure, patience, and guidance. Without mentors like Mindi, or brave individuals like Ember willing to face fear, society remains stuck in its prejudice. In conclusion, Scene 3 is not merely a quirky vignette about a clown phobia. It is a layered metaphor for queer fear and resilience, for the necessity of safe spaces and guiding figures, for the transformative power of gratitude and intimacy. Lesbians relate to Ember's dread, her relief, and her affection, because they mirror the arc of queer life: fear of exposure, triumph of survival, and gratitude for love. Women relate to the caregiving dynamic between Mindi and Ember, which reflects broader patterns of female solidarity. And society's resistance to two women in love is mirrored in Ember's exaggerated fear of clowns, irrational, socially conditioned, but ultimately dissolvable through exposure and truth. In this way, the scene contributes to a broader narrative of LGBTQ culture, where fear becomes a doorway to freedom, where laughter softens pain, and where gratitude blossoms into love that is both transformative and deeply human.